Bombay Alumni Association Hyderabad Chapter. And I would like him to invite, to introduce formally Ramanan ji, and then we can move forward for this particular event. So to you, Ramesh ji.
Okay, thank you, Vaibhav, and good evening once again. Welcome. I hope you are able to hear me, right?
Yeah.
Thank you. So once again, welcome to the inaugural session of the Entrepreneurship Gyan, that's TEG, organized by IIT Bombay Alumni Association, along associations, Startup and Entrepreneurship Special Interest Group, along with the Hyderabad chapter. Okay. Today, we are very lucky to have the inaugural talk by Mr. Ramanan. Okay, I'm sure you will concur with me after my brief introduction, and certainly after the exciting talk that Ramanan will have. I have had the privilege of working with Ramanan in TCS, and I'm very excited to introduce Ramanan. If I have to go through Ramanan's full profile, today it will be my talk, okay, and less of Ramanan's talk. So I'll try to concise it, and then wherever the key things are there, I try to cover the key aspects of it. Mr. Ramanan is a product of IIT Bombay. That's a great news, okay, and from electrical engineering in 1981. That's passed out 81 batch, and his aptitude for continuous learning. When I go to his office, whichever office, I can see tons of books with him. So his aptitude for continuous learning took him to the University of Cambridge in Sustainability Leadership Program in 2013, and also to Harvard Business School in Advanced Management Program in 2014. So he's a keen learner, okay? In addition to this learning dimension, he's a voracious, of course, reader. After graduating from IIT in 1981, Ramanan joined TCS and held various key positions in TCS in the next 40 years. And he rose up to the position of senior vice president much ahead of his age. And he has been deputed to CMC in 2001, I guess. And Ramanan was the chairman, the managing director and managing director and chairman of the CMC Limited for almost like 14 years, and then he was also the chairman of CMC Americas. Later on, he moved from the corporate world, he shifted to the central government role as the additional secretary, first mission director, Atal Innovation Mission. And I'm sure he's going to talk more about what was it and what is this about in the Niti Aayog. And he has held a number of board member positions. Like he was the board member in Tata IQ. He was the board member in Tata Business Support Services. He was the board member in Defense Innovative Organization. He was the board member in Indo-US Science and Technology Forum. Currently, he is an advisor and governance committee member in the Science and Innovation at Bharat. That's the Office of Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India. He is the chairperson of New Zealand Trade and Entrepreneurship Beachhead India Advisory Board. And he is also the board member of Indo-Israel Innovation I4F Forum under the Department of Science and Technology. And he is also the Leadership Advisory Council member of UVA. That's a UNICEF wing, I guess. So it's plenty. So I'll stop here. So with this combination of academics and corporate world and the government sectorial experiences. I'm sure Ramadan will bring in quite an innovative and perspective dimension to today's topic. So welcome, Ramadan sir. Thank you very much for being with us. Yeah, I leave the floor to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ramesh, for that very generous and warm introduction. Thank you, Vaibhav, for inviting me for the inaugural session of the TEG, which I think is a very important initiative, an initiative that is much required, not just for the alumni, but also whoever they are in touch with across the rest of the world. And I'm very happy that this has come on the next day of the 65th year of IIT Bombay celebration. Yesterday, I had a chance to participate in that, in the IIT 65th Celebration of Excellence event, an alumni event that was held. And one of the important topics that was discussed, there was a scintillating panel discussion yesterday. And one of the points was, how can IITians and the alumni of IIT give back to IIT? You know, many institutions abroad, the alumni are very deeply connected with them. They give back to that particular university from where they graduated from. If you take Harvard Business School or Stanford or MIT and so on, very strong alumni contributions, not just from a financial point of view, but also from mentorship, from an association, from bringing their rich experience in the industry and bringing it to bear into the institution. And so there was a big discussion on that. And I'm very happy today that I'm connecting with the alumni of IIT Bombay. It's a pleasure to be with all of you, fellow IITians, as well as anybody else who has connected themselves to this particular call. I'm also very fortunate in the sense that over my 40 years of career, I've had the opportunity of working in 3 entrepreneurial stints, as I call it. One is with TCS when I joined in 1981, because at that time, TCS was a fledgling organization, probably about 500 to 700 people at that time. Today, it is a 650,000 plus people organization, and has been very instrumental in the growth of the entire IT/ITS industry, which has now grown to beyond $250 billion. And soon it will cross $300 billion within the next couple of years. So it's been a tremendous growth curve of the Indian IT industry, and also the rise of the knowledge economy of India being recognized as one of the growing knowledge economies of the world. The second stint was with CMC, which of course was a public sector government organization. And that was acquired by the Tata Group in 2001. And I had the unique opportunity to associate myself with a public sector organization. I saw the tremendous amount of innovative capability that that particular organization brought to the table. But because of restrictions of being part of the government, or because of lack of leadership and so on, it did go through a phase where it went down in terms of its capability, its competencies, or its ability to make an impact. And when the Tatas acquired it, our role was how do we resurrect this core competency, the core innovative capability of this company. And I became a part of it. And it was a very exciting journey where I understood how government works, how public sector organizations work. And we were able to transform CMC into a large multinational organization, and leading to a successful amalgamation into TCS. And then came the third stint with Atal Innovation Mission. I got the unique opportunity to get associated with this mission, which was set up in 2017 by the Government of India. It was a Prime Minister's initiative, the PMO's initiative, to be able to drive a culture of innovation and create an ecosystem of entrepreneurship across the length and breadth of the country. And that was what was the purpose of the mission, because, and we'll come to how that is related to the talk that we are going to be further expounding on. But that was an exciting entrepreneur, because it was like a startup. The Adult Innovation Mission was like a startup. I had 4 people supporting me. And from there, we were able to make, I think, a significant impact on the innovation drive in the country. And I'll talk about Adult Innovation Mission a little later. So this combination of private sector, public sector, and government experience has given me a very ringside view and an overview of the entire ecosystem in the country, which is what I want to share in the next 30 minutes with all of you. And then I'm open to question and answers. We are living in one of the fastest growing economies of the world. India is one of the fastest growing economies of the world. But more importantly, India is also being recognized as one of the fastest growing startup ecosystems of the world. And naturally, because we today have more than 99,000 startups, close to about 100,000 startups in India. We have more than 108 unicorns, and we have more than 400 incubators across universities, which are fostering even bigger startups. We are indeed a startup nation. And that is very important for a country which is having a fast growing economy. When the economy is growing fast and we have more than $500 billion of reserve in our country, and we are able to now invest into further growth, it is very important for us to be able to create a climate, an ecosystem that spurs innovation, that spurs entrepreneurship in order to fulfill the huge demand that is coming up in our country. And what is the demand in our country? That demand is tremendous. We are 1.4 billion people in our country. We have more than 650,000 villages in our country. We have more than 715 districts, and we have 8,000 small towns and cities. And we have only 8 tier 1 cities. And if, of course, our GDP is galloping at a rate of 6 to 8%, and it is going to grow at a rate of 8 to 10% over the next several years. And therefore, India has major aspirations, big ambitions. We are dreaming big, and we have the possibility of achieving it big. The dream is to convert into $5 trillion and a $10 trillion economy. We are aspiring within the next few years to be among the top 3 GDP economies of the world. And these are not small idle dreams for a country which has had only 70 years of independence, and we are in our 75th year. This is a bold ambition to have, but an ambition that is realizable. And why is it realizable? It is realizable for 4 reasons, which I want to expound upon you, and which is what is leading to this explosive growth of the entrepreneurial ecosystem in India. Just 7 years ago, we had less than 10,000 startups. Today, we have close to 100,000 startups, almost a 9x or a 10x increase in the number of startups in our country. And why is it happening? It is happening because of the growing demand. We have, after all, a 250 to 300 million people in our middle class rising economy of our country. But we are going to be adding another 300 million people to this middle class rising economy. That creates a tremendous demand in terms of facilities, welfare, well-being, wellness of the society, and the opportunity to create wealth. We also have a number of people who are in our villages, and therefore they have a number of challenges. We are a country, as I often say, we are a country of 1 billion people with 1 million challenges. But indeed, 1 million challenges are 1 million opportunities for us to be able to transform the nation and to convert into entrepreneurial units, startups, that is going to not only benefit themselves, but they're going to benefit society, the nation at large, and indeed the world at large. Because when you create a solution for 1.3 billion people on this planet, you're also creating a solution for the remaining 7.8 billion people in the world. And therefore, any solution that you're able to create in India is also a solution for the rest of the world. And therefore, the startups today have an opportunity not just to address the Indian market, the growing domestic Indian market, but also the global international market. So this is one of the important reasons. We are having a fast-growing economy, and we are having a population with a demand. But we also have certain other advantages that is catering and creating this tremendous explosive growth in startups. We are among the youngest nation in the world. We have 65% of our country under 35 years old. We have 50% of our country under 25 years old. We have 1.4 million schools. We have 10,500 engineering and related institutions. We have 39,000 colleges. We have 1 million engineers graduating every year from our institutions. And we have fine institutions like IIT Bombay, the IITs, the IICs, the regional engineering colleges, and all these other colleges which are becoming world-class. During the last 5 to 7 years, I've been traveling to the remote parts of this country. And I am amazed to see the world-class infrastructure that is available in cities as remote as Jodhpur or in Sikkim and so on and so forth. They have created educational institutions which are institutions of the future. So this is a young country. And when you are a young country, you have youthful energy coursing through the nation. And when that youthful energy is converted into a transformative energy for the nation, it's a very powerful force. And that is what you're seeing in effect in our country today. The second thing, which is very important, is we are living in a world where technology is becoming advanced, affordable, accessible, and available. And all of you are familiar with that. Those of you who are abroad are experiencing it. So we are living in a world where 3D printing, robotics, IoT, miniaturized electronics, augmented reality, virtual reality, cloud services are all jointly making an impact for us to be able to reimagine new solutions for problems that have not been solved, or to create solutions for problems that are suboptimally solved. And so, all problems that are being anticipated, and new problems are being anticipated with this focus on climate change, reduced emissions, renewable energies, electric mobility, the ability for us to be able to transport ourselves to space and to Mars and so on and so forth. All of these demands are being leveraged by technology, which is becoming affordable, accessible, available, and advanced. And India has harnessed this technology to drive digital transformations in an exemplary manner. The digital transformation, digital public goods and services that has been rendered into the country has created an ecosystem that is ideal for entrepreneurship, for new startups to exploit. Let me share a little bit of what is happening on the digital public goods and services. First and foremost, the UPI, the Unique ID program, the Aadhaar ID program, set the framework for us to be able to develop new solutions in a very easy manner and democratize access to our public. And that UPI, the UPI stack, or the Universal Payments Interface stack, which was built on leveraging the Aadhaar, KYC, and the Unique ID concept, enabled us to sponsor payment systems and mobile payment systems in a manner that has not been emulated in any of the countries across the world. And so now you have 300 million people who were unbanked, who were not in the banking, who were not banking with any formal banks and so on. Now they are immediately connected because of UPI, because of Aadhaar ID, because of Know Your Customer, and they are immediately into a banking system. And suddenly our financial system has become inclusive. And when a financial system becomes inclusive and democratized and accessible and open in architecture, you are now able to develop a number of applications on the third layer to be able to provide to many, many users in any capacity that you want. There are other innovations like the QR code and so on and so forth, which have enabled us to move away from the standard POS terminal, point of sale terminal, to just a QR code being scanned from your mobile and being accessible for a payment from any bank to any other buyer or seller on the marketplace. And now with digital public goods being extended to ONDC, the open network digital commerce that we are talking about, you're going to have the ability of several million small kirana stores, small players being able to digitize their inventory and access this inventory through the ONDC system to be able to supply to any buyer through the mobile payment systems and through the flexible payment system that we have. Now, all of this is causing what? It's causing a tremendous revolution in the country in terms of innovation. The government has realized that this is so very important in order to foster this innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem. After all, we have a Satya Nadella heading Microsoft, a Sundar Pichai heading Google, an Arvind Krishna heading IBM, or a Parag formerly heading Twitter. And you have all these Indians who are doing marvelously in United States or in other parts of the world where they have access to an innovative ecosystem. The government of India was then seized with this problem, saying that how do we create the same innovative entrepreneurial ecosystem in India that will create 1,000 Satya Nadellas, 1,000 Sundar Pichais, 1,000 Abdul Kalams? Because the talent of India is distributed all across the country. After all, an Abdul Kalam came from this humble town of Rameshwaram, a remote coastal town where there were more fishing boats than universities. There are more temples than colleges. And from such a remote town came a man who dreamt big. He wanted to become a pilot. He became one of the finest scientists that India has ever seen. He became the missile scientist of India, and he also rose on to become the president of our country. So we have talent across the country, in the remotest parts of our country, in the rural districts, but we have not created an ecosystem of innovation and entrepreneurial support that would be enabling them to have access to and thereby blossom to realize their full potential. And that is why Atal Innovation Mission and initiatives like that by the government, Startup India and so on, have given a tremendous boost to support and create that ecosystem that is going to promote entrepreneurship and innovation across the length and breadth of our country. We have had tremendous educational institutions, but we have always focused on rote learning. And rote learning has brought us here. Good so far. We have created, after all, a $250 billion IT/ITS industry because of the emphasis on education, as well as getting good marks, going to a good university, getting good marks again, going to a university abroad, and getting good marks there, and joining a job in Google or IBM, and so on and so forth. But can we now create a nation of job creators? That is the problem. And that is the need of the hour. Because if we are not creating entrepreneurs to meet the demand of our own country, you're going to have thousands of countries, hundreds of countries coming to our country, and thousands of entrepreneurs from outside leveraging and capitalizing on the demand that is being created in our country. And therefore, there is a need for us to create, for supporting our 1.4 billion people, we need to create millions of entrepreneurs who will be able to take advantage of an ecosystem that is created to support them, not just in the main cities, but across the rest of the country, from the hilly parts, from the tier 2, tier 3 cities, and so on. We want to create 8,000 smart cities and hubs of innovation and job creation. We want to create the future job creators of India. We want to become a nation of job creators, not just job seekers. And that is what you are seeing in motion today. You're seeing in India on the move because of this tremendous interest in entrepreneurship and innovation. Gone are the days where the university students who are going out are saying, let me run to the first job who is giving me the highest salary. They are saying, if there is an ecosystem, there is an incubator, there is an opportunity for me to create my own startup, I want to experiment on that. I want to try that out before I go into the placement mode. And that's good. Not that everybody has, you're not going to have everyone becoming an entrepreneur or a job creator. But as long as you have the entrepreneurial mindset, wherever you go, you will make an impact. And that impact will help India have those initiatives go forward. And so you have missions like the Atal Innovation Mission, which has created thousands of tinkering labs in schools across the country. Now, why are we starting at schools? Because they are the future. They are the architects of the future of our country. They are the change makers. And if you don't induct in them a role of innovation, problem solving, innovative thinking, if you don't induct in them that sort of design thinking and critical thinking that is required in the 21st century to make a difference, then they will all they'll be waiting for a job. And we don't want that. We want them to potentially exploit their own human capability to become entrepreneurs and job creators. So we have set up thousands of tinkering labs in schools across the country. And these schools are equipped with the latest of technologies like 3D printing, robotics, IoT, miniaturized electronics, augmented virtual reality, cloud services, to be able to harness them and create solutions, prototypes, for problems they see in and around the community. So the children go to a neighboring school, they go to a park, they go to a hospital, they go to a metro station. They see what are the problems that they encounter in all of these places. They come back, converge in small groups, create a solution for addressing the problem. And that is what we require in terms of innovation and entrepreneurship. Because every time you solve a problem, whether it is related to transportation, hygiene, health, water management, affordable housing, clean drinking water, sanitation, and so on and so forth, you're also creating an opportunity, economic opportunity for yourself and for the rest of the world. There is a startup that I am familiar with called Wooloo. It's amazing. They created a startup in order to ensure, first, where are all the washrooms which are women accessible washrooms in the country? Because women, when they're traveling in the country, they are not able to find out where is the nearest washroom, which is amenable for a woman to use. And then they provide a managed service around it and all of this. So suddenly you have a startup which is focusing on washrooms and restrooms in the country, and it's making a whole lot of money. But more importantly, it's creating a better environment for people to experience and live in as we travel across the country. And so every problem that you see, as I say, is an opportunity for creating a startup. And so what is happening? We have various ministries today who are all involved with innovation. The education department is seized. Every university is having an innovation cell, institute innovation cell, including IIT Bombay. And these innovation cells are enabling students to understand and talk about what innovation is and how do we participate in this innovation revolution and the entrepreneurial revolution that is going on. And incubators are being set up in the cities across the country. And those incubators foster startups. They are given grants by the government, by Startup India, by DST, the Department of Science and Technology, DBT, the Department of Biotechnology, and various ministries, Ministry of Agriculture, IDEX, for example, Innovations for Defense Excellence, is now enabling defense-related requirements to go to the startup community so that Make in India becomes a reality. Electronics, we are importing so much of electronics which need not be imported, and they could have been done in India. We are, after all, having 1 million engineers graduating from a country. So where is the need to import so much of accessory electronics that is there? But we do that because we have not created the ecosystem or the infrastructure to be able to design and manufacture here. Now that is changing. And the government is deploying huge amount of infrastructure and huge amount of funding to be able to do all of this. And so we are now living at a time, one of the most amazing times in India, where startups can make a difference, not only to themselves, but also to the country and to the nation. And so we have not just Startup India, or you have now the private sector who are actively participating in all of this. Because of the availability, because of digital public goods that is enabling open access to through APIs to the various layers that are being put in identity in Aadhaar or in the national payment system or in the credit payment system and so on, we are going to have increased digitization of credit. We're going to have increased digitization of supply chain logistics, and we're going to have increased digitization of e-commerce capability across the country. And that's going to create a completely new wave of economically driven growth and inclusive growth that includes not just from India, not just from the metros, but also from the remote parts of the country. There's a lot of initiative to support by the Ministry of Urban Housing and Development for smart villages, smart districts, smart cities, smart water management, smart electricity management, and all of these leverage technology which has become affordable, accessible, available in advance. And therefore, you're seeing this tremendous convergence of not only the youthful energy and youthful power of our country, but also a fast-growing economy, available, accessible, and affordable technology, and a tremendous amount of initiative by the government in research institutions, in universities, in the student school ecosystem to create a problem-solving, innovative generation of students who will then take on to entrepreneurship and to startups. And the result is there for us to see. We are seeing 99,000 plus startups today, but more importantly, we are seeing also a tremendous focus on global expansion of these startups into global territories. And therefore, this is an opportunity for all of us who are on this call, whether you are alumni, whether you are young or old. If you are young, you can plunge into the startup world and the entrepreneurial world with a feeling of not having a feeling of risk, but the fact that there is a VC world out here in India that domestically supports investment into startups. That was not happening about 10 years ago, but today we have a lot of VC interest, venture capital interest by domestic investors, by large corporates who are interested in contributing to the growth, socio-economic growth of our country. We are also having a tremendous interest in social innovation in our country. In fact, community innovation centers are being set up in India in various remote parts of the country. The Atal Innovation Mission has, for instance, has set up 25 community innovation centers. And these community innovation centers are doing innovation which is community-centric. What is a community-centric innovation? If you take, for example, if you're in Goa, how do you promote the fishing industry, the shipping industry, the shipbuilding industry, the mining industry, the tourism industry, or the cashew nut industry? So because people there are familiar with all of these vocations, and how do you therefore stimulate innovation and entrepreneurship to go to the next level of being able to sell your cashews from Goa to any other part of the world, from Jodhpur to Japan, from Salem to Seattle, or from Sikkim to San Francisco? And global commerce and global connectivity is enabling us to dream of reaching our product or service to any part of the world. And therefore, my dear friends, we are living in exciting times. And all of these are converging together to create an impact that has not been seen before. We have close to 7 billion plus mobile payment transaction, UPI-based transactions that are happening every month today, just in a period of 9 years. We have more than 60 million QR codes installed in various shops so that you can just go buy whatever you want, show your mobile phone, pick up the QR code, make a payment from your bank to the bank of where that particular Kirana store is banking from. And the targets is being to move from 7 billion transactions to 30 billion transactions per month. These are tremendous changes that are going to happen over the next couple of years. And therefore, this is the time for young students from universities to take the plunge into the world of entrepreneurship, into the world of innovation, into the world of startups, and make a difference to themselves and to the community around. And there's also a chance for all of us who are not necessarily directly starting startups, but to mentor, to bring your domain knowledge, to bring your capabilities to the fore, to help these startups succeed. And as the great Vivekananda said, arise, awake, and stop not till your goals are reached. So can I request all of us to participate in ensuring that we all arise to the challenges, but more importantly, the opportunities that India affords? Can we awaken the talent and the innovative capability and our creativity and our passion to support the innovation and entrepreneurship movement? And let us stop not till the UN Sustainable Development Goals of the world and India's Atmanirbhar Bharat goals are reached. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to share a few thoughts on this occasion, and I'm now open to any questions.
That was amazing, Ramananji, to hear from you. Fantastic, a lot of numbers, a lot of data points as expected from an IIT and I would say, because a lot of times people hear a lot of jargons, a lot of buzzwords, but then having data is actually the key. And I'm from the Department of Mathematics, so for me, without data, the talk is nothing actually. All right, so I will go to the questions directly. So I'll just read out the questions that we have. So one of our colleagues have asked how to go beyond the rote learning to entrepreneurial learning and building faculty capability and attracting students for it. So that's the question from one of our colleagues. Maybe you can just go ahead with it.
Yeah, so it's a very good question, and that is exactly what we try to do through the Atal Tinkering Labs in schools. And you should set up these tinkering labs and innovation labs in the universities also, which is also happening now. See, the idea is we learn a lot in schools, and the emphasis by the teacher, by the faculty, and even by the parent has been, go and get good marks and just go into the next grade and so on and so forth. And so we have this fetish for marks, but we then in that process do not see the inherent talent that a person has and the creative, and we sort of still the creative capabilities of a young student. And creativity can come in multiple ways. It comes, you may be interested in a certain aspect of what you study. You may be interested in physics, you may be interested in chemistry, you may be interested in creating solutions rather than focusing on theory. And knowledge becomes more interesting to acquire when you start solving problems. So we have to enable, at the end of the day, what are we teaching for? We are teaching the young student to be a problem solver in their life. And that's the purpose of education. How do you deal with various problems as you encounter, and how do you overcome that using your inherent capability and intelligence and so on? And therefore, setting up tinkering labs, for instance, and this has become affordable now. And we could not have thought about it maybe 10 years ago or 15 years ago. But today, because technology has become available and accessible, just for 7 lakhs, 6 to 7 lakhs, you're able to create a tinkering lab in a school with access to 50 people at any point in time. And they play with this technology because these are all plug and play modules that are there. And when you play with them, you start promoting them in them a thought of how do you solve problems using these technologies, and take them to a nearby park or take them to a hospital, tell them what problems do you see that you think you can solve. And you will be amazed to see how the children group together, think of a solution, and convert that idea into, and their imagination into, an innovation. And that's what we need to teach, the art of problem solving. Teachers for that, and you're right, many teachers are not familiar with the latest technology that is out there. And that is why we also created a mentoring network, one of the largest mentoring networks in India, called Mentors of Change. More than 6,000 mentors are part of this mentoring network in India today. And they're all volunteers from the industry, people like you and me who say, we want to give back in some way, and we want to give back in an area of our competence. So these become mentors associated with these schools and labs, and they also mentor the teachers. And we organize a teacher training program. You have to train the teacher first into not necessarily the technology, but what this technology is all about, just at a high level, and tell them to encourage creativity and problem solving, because that is something that they can do. They don't need to become technology experts, but they need to instill that problem solving entrepreneurial thinking into the students. And I think by doing all of this and then creating challenges, making it exciting, not telling that I'll give you so many marks for it if you do it right, but telling them, learning to fail and learning from failure, and making failure an exciting process of your learning. As the great Abdul Kalam said, the word fail means first attempt in learning. So we have to first change ourselves, mindset, in terms of how we approach. If a student asks a question that the teacher cannot answer, the teacher should not get infuriated with that, but rather they should see how they can help, address that particular question. So I think there is a systematic change required in terms of the way we approach, and that is what is happening. The NEP 2020 is inculcating the importance of it and the need for it, and is driving the behavior now in a different manner.
Okay, moving on to the next question. So obviously, this is one of the questions which is always asked to most of us IITians especially. So what are we doing to prevent brain drain from our country, which is so essential to retain within the country in order to foster the entrepreneurial ecosystem? So I think, that's always a well-asked question. And in fact, I also worked in Europe, then I moved to Latin America, and then I returned back to India. Obviously, I have my own motives and reasons, but a lot of people would like to be outside itself and not return back. So maybe you can just
answer. Yeah. So I think the only way you can prevent brain drain, or I don't have a problem. I don't see it's any problem for people to go abroad, study in a good university, and so on. But as long as they can see the opportunity for entrepreneurship and innovation in India, right, they will come back. And that is what we are trying to create in the ecosystem here. One is, in the universities itself, can you create the ecosystem for entrepreneurship? And in fact, many IITians today prefer to be here and start startups on their own rather than go abroad. I mean, that's the increasing trend that you are seeing now. If you look at the number of people who leave IIT and go abroad versus those who prefer to stay back and try out the market here and create their own venture and so on, that number is drastically changing. And I think the only solution for that is to be able to create an innovative ecosystem that fosters it, that supports it, that encourages it, and where you're also being provided the fund. You know what? A student right in the beginning doesn't aspire to get 40 lakhs or 50 lakhs, but he doesn't want to go into a risky path where he has to pay money for everything, and then he doesn't know whether that is going to, he's going to spend money and whether that will have the returns. So the startup seed funding, the incubators, Startup India initiatives, funds of funds, all of these are they're being given as grants. They're not even being given as loans. And then also the loan system is being subsidized or being eased. So the ease of innovation is being increased. And by increasing the ease of innovation, smart students would prefer to be here because it helps them realize their full potential. 2 years in a startup, in your own startup, is much more beneficial than 10 years in a same job in some company, big company. So at the end of 2 years, your demand, even if your startup doesn't succeed for whatever reason, right? Your demand in the industry will be so high that you will get a great job. So you don't have to worry about that. So you need to enable that the risk-taking environment in our country is eased, and that's what causes the ease of innovation. And by doing that, automatically you will prevent the brain drain. And that's what the government is trying to do.
Excellent.
Ramanan, there's one more question from Anirudh. Anirudh, if 1 million engineers are graduating each year, million perhaps is 4 questions are there associated. What are they good at or / in or for? Obviously, that's a big question. We had many times. What's their capability, right? And what must be they be at? Okay. And the third question is, how can their collective energy or / passion be catalyzed and harnessed? And final question is, how can we nurture and harness them? Absolutely, this is all in sequence. Yeah, I'm sure you have seen all these problems. Thank you.
Yes, so I think all the questions are definitely related and linked to each other. And there is a tremendous amount of focus now on improving the employability of engineers graduating from our institutions. And I think the problem has been one of quality of infrastructure and quality of training that is provided in the institutions, because there are many, and also a tight linkage with the industry had been missing for quite some time, but now that is being addressed. You see, after all, employability of engineers or the ability of them to create startups and so on comes with a very good current market knowledge of what the industry is looking for, what will succeed in this marketplace, what are the trends that are happening, where can I get more successes, where is, for example, today there is an increased demand for other branches of engineering because AI requires specialization in civil engineering or transportation engineering or chemical engineering. You cannot just be an IT engineer and understand how you can use AI in a chemical industry or how you can use AI in a transportation industry. So you need our electric mobility industry, battery management systems, and so on. There is a tremendous amount of realization today, not only by universities, but by students. And I would think because of very active social media presence today, as well as the access to the network and internet and so on, it has become very easy for us to be able to be current with what is required in the industry. And as long as you're current with what is required in the industry, your ability to meet the requirements of the industry become better and better. And now there are many of the industries are working actively with universities, including TCS, Infosys, Wipro, you name it. They all have partnership with the universities to ensure that the curriculum in the universities is as much aligned to what the industry needs as the theoretical needs of that particular subject. So this is how you are able to bridge the gap, and that gap is being bridged. And then you also have today a tremendous amount of focus on ranking of institutions. And so the institutions are wanting to be ranked. There is the NAC ranking, there is the NIRF, National Institution Ranking Forum, NIRF ranking. So these rankings are making the institutions to aspire to better ranking because they get better facilities. There are special grants that the government gives when you are in the top 200 or in the top 100. And so there is this aspiration to improve the overall quality of training as well as the students who come out from there. And that's what is going to create this positive movement. Harnessing this energy, you have to shift them to a problem-solving, innovative mindset. And many universities today, I've been actively engaged with many universities, innovation projects become a part of their 4th year or 5th year. They can adopt a village next to where their university is located. And the students should be encouraged to go and identify a project in that particular village, which they can come up with a solution. Now, when you start doing these sort of things, the students get very interested because they actually see the problem and they see that they can have a solution to the problem and they can be the architects of that solution. So this whole problem-solving innovative culture is being embedded in the students through these institute innovation cells that are being set up in the institutions, and thereby promoting projects which are problem-solving innovative projects. And now the industry is also, because of CSR contributions, which have become mandatory, they also find a good vehicle to be able to contribute their CSR for meaningful social innovation and social entrepreneurship. And therefore, you're seeing that movement also gathering steam. So these are all the various initiatives that are being done. Yes, 1 million engineers is a good number, but it's not good enough for a country like India. We still need more. And the opportunity of the world is tremendous because technology is changing so fast that the application of this technology to newer solutions and solving newer problems is very high.
Oh, thank you, Ramana. Thank you. That was really good. In fact, that just triggered my thought process and how do I go to colleges and then talk about the solutions that, the problems that we are facing in the villages. That's good as part of the volunteer organization. So another question from Shirish. This is very interesting. Shirish is involved in mentoring teachers pre-primary to high school, mentoring them in Maharashtra. He says, how are the teachers going to be trained in to implement NEP? And that was his question. My question is, to what extent this thought process that currently that we've been talking about is incorporated in the NEP, new education policy? Yeah, please go ahead.
So let me first address the second question, and that is NEP 2020 is a very comprehensive revamp of focus of education. Okay, it's not revamp of the education itself, but the focus of education should be how do you, number one, how do you make it, how do you create the problem solvers and the skills that are required in the 21st century? How are they being imparted to the students rather than an archaic curriculum which does not foster preparing the young students for the 21st century and the next century. So that is one part. The second is it is very inclusive in nature. I mean, the focus on inclusivity, the focus on accessibility, the focus on financial viability of an institution. All of these are also wrapped in the NEP 2020, which if you go in detail, you will see all points related to that. And then, of course, the idea is how do we make sure that vocational training is given as much importance as our academic pursuits, and that today in India, vocational training or technical training is still considered subservient to an academic degree. Whereas if you look at most advanced nations across the world, they are on equal footing. And one need not consider them because you need the engineers, you need technicians who can have a growth path. Initially, because of whatever compulsions, they may not be able to aspire for a degree and they want to immediately start working. So they acquire a technical degree or a technical qualification. But how do you formalize that? How do you certify it? How do you give it credits so that when you want to then get the benefit of the formal academic system, you get the benefit of that through the accrual of appropriate credits. So all of these are being implemented now in the university ecosystem. And it's great to see the focus going not just on engineering or IT and so on, but going into vocational training and so on. And there is a huge need for that. I mean, if you look at, for example, the nursing profession. The nursing profession, with 1.4 billion people, we have a lot of healthcare related problems. We want to encourage more into nursing. We also want to professionalize nursing. Most of the nurses are women. Why should it be like that? Why can't men go into professional nursing? And so these are all new things that are happening in some of the institutions, and that's the way to address it. The first question was related to how are teachers being trained on NEP 20.
Yes.
Yeah. So, it is very interesting. One of the biggest growth of startups has been in the edtech space. And there are a number of startups who are, creating not just the curriculum, but also train the teacher programs so that the teachers get acquainted with the latest, not only curriculum, but also methodologies, pedagogy, and so on to deal with this new world of NEP 2020. And so that is, of course, government initiatives to train them. But I think the private sector and the startup industry is also playing an increasing role. You have many CSR contributions coming into education for training the teachers and so on. And through this, mentoring network that is being set up. In fact, I believe in the next couple of days, Women Entrepreneurship Network mentoring platform is going to be launched by the Niti Aayog. And so that is something that is incredible, because we'll have, only 14% of our entrepreneurs are women, or I think the latest is 20%. It has gone up from 14 to 20%. But still, the number of women entrepreneurs in our industry, and you have a lot of rural women who can, because of inclusion, financial inclusive capability, they can become entrepreneurs in the agri, horticulture, and so on and so forth. And so we want to promote that in a big way. And there is a lot of women entrepreneurship training programs being given across the country by many NGOs. So these are all the various initiatives that are happening. And yes, the size of India is always a formidable challenge that we have to address, but it is addressable. And leveraging technology, distance learning, the internet, mobile technologies, and so on, you are able to now reach across. And I mean, if you see today, so many people are taking online yoga classes. So many people are doing online crafts, learning crafts, and so on and so forth. And we are also having, I know that one of the community innovation centers that I'm associated with, they do online training of arts and crafts from Jodhpur and from Sikkim. It's because those people are very familiar with those arts and crafts. And it was a dying craft, but now more people are showing interest, even in the urban environment. And therefore, they become the teacher for all of these people.
Thanks, Ramanan. Yeah, Vaibhav?
Yeah, good to hear that. And, I think already you took that example of UPI. I think that's the biggest thing that, that has happened. So, from, just right in front of us from India. And
yes,
that's an example in front of us that, we have a large mass and we could use that to create something, really innovative. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And UPI is now, coming in newer forms, UPI Lite, UPI 1, 2, 3, and all of those things are in the offing. So, there is a tremendous, I would say, UPI and the Jan Dhan, or the Jam Trinity, as they call it. One is bank accounts. So today we have, they added 300 million bank accounts to the rural economy, within a couple of years. So you have a very large number of people who are now access to the banking industry. You made, through mobile technology and smartphone technology, which is reducing in cost, Geo ushered a revolution in being able to reduce the communication costs. And now we have the cheapest communication costs anywhere in the world. Mm-hmm. And the other ID gave a unique ID. And that unique ID became a basis for developing a number of applications that enable knowing your customer, bringing robustness into the payment system, accountability, transparency, reducing intermediaries, distribution of cash became easy. Today you have fast tags in the cars, and the new cars which are being manufactured will automatically have to have a fast tag. Mm-hmm. The government has said you should have. And so that has enabled this whole collection of tolls and all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. And directly, the viability of road projects has become better and better because of all of this. Yeah. So efficiency, logistics, all of these are getting affected because of these stacks that have been built. Yeah. And now the government is building up a health stack also, which will be of tremendous value for the people.
Yeah. So coming to the next question, Ramananji. So Pawan has asked about how to solve corporate governance issues in startups in India. And so in academia, we call it actually the dark side of entrepreneurship. So obviously there is the bright side. There is also a dark side. A lot of people are interested in studying. Obviously, I'm not among them, but yeah, obviously it's there. And a lot of ventures fail. A lot of money. People say that a lot of money gets wasted. What they call it. Although I see it as as an investment. As you mentioned, there are failures. So obviously some money has to be invested for certain innovation, and failures would happen. But then what what are the corporate governance issues, and how can we solve it basically?
No, absolutely. I think it's a very important question. Startups have what is called as the valleys of death. And these valleys of death are pretty severe if you don't pay attention to them right from the beginning. And therefore, you need to have a strong governance framework. In fact, I was recently part of a committee that floated a startup governance framework as a part of G20 deliberations. It is there on the G20 website. Those of you who are interested should go and download that startup governance framework document, which was created with a team of experts from financial, institutional, educational, government, and so on and so forth, and had the chance to coordinate it. And I think that is very important. The governance framework is very important because you're seeing now that, when a startup starts, they are young people. They have not had the benefit of experience of being part of a corporate and large organizations and so on and so forth. And so there are many things that they either try to skip in the pressure of wanting to grow fast, or they neglect. And so that's where they plunge into this valley of death, as they call, and it becomes an irrecoverable one sometimes. I have a very simple explanation for the startup world. The word startup contains all the solution. First, the S stands for a solution. You should have a unique solution for a unique problem. Before you embark on a startup, look at whether that is already there somewhere else and that you are very late in the game or not. And even if you're late in the game, what is the uniqueness of your solution that you're bringing? And is that solution scalable? Is it sustainable? And does it use sustainable technology? Then only your startup is going to succeed. The T stands for technology. How are you leveraging technology in your startup? And are you leveraging it effectively? And do you have enough knowledge of the technology? Because even if your startup is not a technology-driven startup, it needs technology for becoming successful in terms of marketing, in terms of IT systems, in terms of support system, in terms of customer help and support, etc., etc. So you need to leverage technology. And if you're a technology-driven startup, so much are the better chances to succeed because you are able to bring added functionality and uniqueness. The A stands for agility. Are you agile? You may have the ability. First of all, do you have the ability in terms of complementary capability? And that is where the other T in the startup is there, having the right team. So you need to have the right team. You need to complement yourself. You need to find people better than you are, the first 4 or 5 founders. That's why today many venture capitalists only give money to multiple founder startup because one guy cannot have it all, technology, finance, marketing, promotion, IT system. You have to bring all of that capability into the success of the startup. So you need to have technology, but you also need to have the team. And that's what brings the agility in the startup. Agility happens when you are intensely connected with the market. If you're not, many people do a startup and then they're looking for customers, or they have not tested their product out in the marketplace. They are not beta tested it and so on. So you need to do that. And R stands for re-engineering. You have to continuously re-engineer. If you don't have the ability, look at iPhone. iPhone is in its 14th version today, and it has created one of the largest companies in the world. And in the 14th version, they have been reiterating, re-engineering that same product over the last 13 years. And now you have the iPhone 14 and they're still, ruling the market. So a single product with being re-engineered continuously can still create a great solution for the rest of the world. And similarly, your startup has to continuously re-engineer because customer expectations change, technology change, business models change, access to market changes, and so on. And finally, you have to have the U stands for utilization. Are you utilizing your resources? Many people, they apply for Series A, Series B, Series C, and then they get a whole lot of money and they don't know how to utilize it. They don't need it in the first place. Do you need it in the first place is what you should be questioning. And how much do you need? And can you bootstrap it? Can you self-fund it? Can you create a revenue model from your startup that is funding your own growth? You have to look at all those possibilities before you accumulate large amounts of money. And when you do that, you have to see how are you utilizing it and are you utilizing it well. And when you don't utilize it well, then comes the crash, as you can see in some of the very, very famous startups which have just utilized that money over a lot of things which are not necessary. And then finally, you should have passion. Without passion, you're not going to succeed. You should have persistence. In India, I don't see why startups can't succeed if they have the passion, because you have the market. You have to get it right. And if you address all of those aspects that I talked about continuously, I'm sure you'll get it right and you'll succeed. But yes, the failure rate of startups is high. That's why the incubation centers are being set up to give that support, the mentoring support, the venture capital support, and so on. You need a great mentor for a startup. You need to have not just one mentor, but maybe multiple mentors. And you should actively seek out those mentors because they can guide you on that path. Somebody who has been there, who's already grown, another fellow startup who has been able to succeed, their best practices can be learned by you. So chances of failure are high, but they are high only when you neglect all of this. And they are very good if you just address this in a very systematic manner, and you will succeed.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for your answer, Ramananji. And there is another question from my friend Naveen. If I'm correct, Naveen Joshi. And his question is, in your experience, how easy or difficult is it to start a new business in India compared to other developed economies like US, UK, etc., with respect to paperwork or other compliance required for startups? And I think that could be a lot of questions from most of our, NRI colleagues and friends and things like that. Yeah. And a lot of them go to Singapore or go to other markets and, have started their startups from there instead of starting from India. Yeah. So please, can you please shed some light on that?
Your question is, how do we prevent exodus of startups to...
How easy or difficult is it to start a new business in India compared to, these US or UK markets?
Well, now to start up a startup in India is very, very straightforward. In fact, you go to Startup India, they very clearly lay out what you need to do in order to start a startup. You can start a LLP firm, you can start a private limited, you can do a Section 8 company. That's not a problem. That's why 99,000 plus startups are already there, registered. The question is, are those startups doing all the things required for them to succeed? That is another part. But registering a startup, starting a company has become very easy today in India. There's hardly much cost associated with starting a startup. And as a startup, when you register yourself as a startup, the definition of a startup is available in the startup website. You should be less than 100 crores and you should less than 10 years or whatever. There's some criteria like that. But once you register yourself as a startup, you are able to avail of a whole lot of other facilities that the government is providing. For example, there is a government e-marketplace called GEM. And your startup, which is having a product or service, if you're a registered startup and if you're on GEM, then you get a preferential access to government buying. And so all government buyers are encouraged to buy from startups who are in GEM. Okay, and that means depending on what area you are involved in. And of course, it's a competitive open marketplace within that GEM marketplace. So you have to be competitive and you have to have your own value proposition there. But those are some of the facilities that are being made. So ease of business and ease of, India is still not so good in ease of business. Taxation policies are getting continuously refined and so on. But I think today you have 108 unicorns who have been born based in India, or most of them have been having access to foreign, $500 billion of foreign reserves are there in India today. And there is a whole lot of interest by global investors into Indian startups too.
What I see is especially a lot of tech entrepreneurs are also coming from outside to India, actually in the recent past. And they are, obviously the reason is to capture the market. We can already understand it from outside that, they somehow want to capture the market, but they are, I think, pretty much also, happy with the infrastructure and, the paperwork and the easiness to open a startup. I think that's also kind of helping them out, right?
Yeah. No, if you see some of the infrastructure that has been set up in incubators, workplaces and all, they're pretty fantastic. I mean, as good as I've seen anywhere abroad. So it's not that you don't have access to these sort of world-class infrastructure and so on. But India is India. There are a lot of challenges in India, and you need to be able to work within those challenges. But you also have access to a lot of people who are willing to help you and support you today in this journey, I think, in India. So that's the difference I see between today and, you know, somewhere some 8 or 10 years ago. Very active communities. You have NASCOM, TIE, all of this. If you become a member of that community, you immediately have access to so much of information and mentoring and network support that you need.
Fantastic. So we have around 15 minutes more. So maybe Ramesh, you could take another 1 or 2 questions.
Sure. Ramanan, there are quite a few questions around the ecosystem for funding. You know, people want to know, like, what are the different sources, and especially from government and the private sector. So if you can show some light on that, you know.
So there one is, you know, of course, government promotes, you know, angel investing and angel funding. And that's how they give grants, they give startup. So government has major initiatives in setting up incubators. They give them grants. For example, when you set up an Atal incubator, the incubator or the applicant is typically a university. It could be a private university or it could be a public university. If you're a public university, you get up to 10 crores of grant to set up the incubator. And each incubator is supposed to foster 25 startups, 20 to 25 startups every 2 years. And they give a portion of that incubator grant is for seed funding the startups at the end of a year. The startup should be self-funding themselves for 1 year, and after that they are eligible for seed funding. So that is you know, being set up. And then many other institutions like Department of Science and Technology, Department of Biotechnology, Ministry of Agriculture, they are all setting up incubators like that in specializations related to science and technology or in biotechnology and so on. So then you have what are known as seed grants, seed funding grants. Startup India, by the way, is also has the fund of funds which it distributes through AIFs in India, and they get administered as loans, etc., to startups who want to be in the startup climate. So they are given at lower interest rates and so on, and that is the fund of funds enables or encourages the fostering of startups. Startup India, as well as institutions like DST and so on, they also give seed grants and they give accelerator grants. So if you're running an accelerator program, so you get a grant so that startups who are in a scale-up mode, in a growth mode, they can attend these accelerator programs and benefit from them. And these accelerator programs also provide access to VC networks and other funding networks through which the startup can avail. And the VC network typically likes to invest not in angel startups, though there are some VCs who are focusing on that, but mostly they like to enter into the Series A level or the pre-Series A level, where they see a startup actually grown to a point beyond the minimum viable product, and they have already launched it in the market and they are having some revenue and so on and so forth. That is when the VCs like to step in and see the potential of their startup and scale it up by funding. You have a number of VC agencies in India today. I mean, it's amazing how the VC industry has grown. You can have access to on the internet. It tells you a whole lot of information on the VCs who are actively participating in India and who are investing in Indian startups. The other is research institutions. Now the government has come up with a National Research Foundation research grant. Almost 50,000 crores is going to be given with active participation by the private sector as well as the universities in that. And that's to promote research, applied research as well as research, so that spurs innovation to the next level. So these are all the sources of funding that are there. And then of course you have the foreign investors who are willing to also invest, but they typically partner with a university, or they typically partner with a state government or the central government in some of these.
All right, thanks, Ramanan. One more question. See, in terms of the challenges, of course, we have our own native challenges of India. But when it when we compare to the rest of the world, what additional challenges we have? I mean, except that population and then low tech filtration, those are the common challenges that we have. But in addition to that, are there any other specific challenges in India for a startup?
First of all, challenges in India are many. While what I presented is the world of startups and how that is growing and how there is an exponential growth, and that is being triggered by a whole lot of things that we talked about, and the convergence of all of that is triggering the growth of startups. The challenges of India are many. For example, 22% of our country is still below the poverty line. 48% plus of our country is agri-economy base. We have more than our MSME industry. We have more than 6 lakh crore MSMEs, and they are all in different stages of stores, from very small operations to medium, micro, small, medium enterprises, and they need to be able to become self-sufficient. Their research capability and innovation capability has to be enhanced. If you look at the 715 districts that we have, 115 districts are called aspirational districts, because they are at the bottom of the pyramid in terms of basic access to healthcare, education, clean drinking water, sanitation, waste management, and so on. So if you're a startup coming from any of these areas, right, there is a challenge in terms of finding local partnerships, local investment capability, local infrastructure, and so on. And while that is changing, we are still grappling with those problems in many parts of those countries. And therefore, a startup has to position themselves well. Even if they have a solution for a rural part of the country, they probably need to position themselves with a university, an incubator, or a city where they have access to resources to be able to develop their product and be able to market it and sell it. And so there is a big opportunity for the startup to address, but the challenges based upon their location as well as their access to resources, whether it is financial or otherwise, technology, needs to be carefully thought through before they launch into the startup world.
Thanks, Vaibhav?
Yeah, so there is another question from Azad. Instead of emphasizing global reach, shouldn't we focusing on local solutions for local problems?
And yeah, in fact, that's the first point I made, that the demand of our country is local. Yeah. And therefore, we need entrepreneurs to address the local demand. Otherwise, it will be addressed by others across the world. And this local demand is what is generating, I mean, what is the growth of India GDP? One of the reasons why India has been sort of resilient to global recessions is because of its very strong domestic demand and domestic investors. In fact, we have a lot of domestic investors because of SIP and all of that. People are investing the money, and therefore the ability to support projects within the country is all local. And like I said, the community innovation centers that we are talking about, they are meant for community-centric innovation to drive local innovation and local growth and address local problems. Whether it is water management, whether it is agriculture management, whether it is boosting the economy of that particular district or that surrounding districts, that is the opportunity. And so, yes, but at the same time, you have a global reach for your product and your solution and your service to be able to leverage. And if you neglect that, then you're neglecting the growth of your own potential product or service. For example, if you are creating an artwork in Jodhpur or in Sikkim, why do you just restrict it to the sale in the local market? Why not using e-commerce, sell it to any part of the world which is looking for it? And now suddenly you have opened up the market. There are many entrepreneurs, very intrepid entrepreneurs in the slums of Dharavi who are having global products, and they are selling, the shoes and customized wear and so on and so forth to large organizations or individuals abroad. So I think leveraging the internet, leveraging communication capability, leveraging technology, and enabling a reach beyond where you are is also an important aspect in your growth.
Yeah, thanks for answering that. And obviously, because we have like around 8 minutes remaining, so I would like to ask this key question: like, how do you envision the future of the Indian entrepreneurial ecosystem? So maybe answer in two parts. Maybe 10 years from now, and then maybe 20 years from now, something like this, so that we would like to also know your vision and how you envision how entrepreneurial ecosystem would be in the future. Yeah.
See, there's something called the Global Innovation Index that India participates in, right? And in the last 2014, it was at a position of 81. Last year, I think it was in a position of 46 or something like that. So there's been a tremendous leaping of our innovation. And the innovation index is actually calculated on multiple parameters. It's not just how many startups are there, but actually the impact of innovation on the country as a whole in various areas, whether it is in education, medicine, health, hygiene, et cetera. So there are a number of parameters if you refer to the Global Innovation Index. And it is amazing to see how India is moving ahead. The way our country is developing, there are two parts to it. One is the economic part, and the second is the social part, right? We cannot have a country which is just growing economically, but where the growth is limited to a smaller section of our society and the larger section is deprived of it. So we need to ensure that the larger section grows equally and in fact faster than just the smaller section. That is one part. So that's why it's very important to keep in mind socio-economic growth of our country. And when you look at socio-economic growth, it is very important to spur innovation that actually makes impact across the country. And Prahlad's Bottom of the Pyramid book is a classic book which shows that even under these circumstances, when you are addressing the bottom of the pyramid, there is money to be made and there is economic growth to be had. And I think that is the path India is following. I think the digital public goods, which is quite unique to India and which is still not there anywhere else in the world, that enables a really equitable, inclusive growth for the country. So I don't see why we should not be among the top 10 innovative countries of the world in the next 20 years. I think we should be there in the next 20 years.
Yeah, good to know that, like most of us, you are also kind of very bullish on India, actually. And I think that could be the reason that, most of the young entrepreneurs, and especially in my network, I see a lot of my friends who went, for example, to Europe, to US as well. And, at times they have returned and had their startups. So, for example, one of my startups was already in GSF Incubator Accelerator in Gurgaon. And we are trying to do our role here. So because we envision something what you are sharing, that
absolutely. And I think within the next 10 years, we are going to see a remarkable growth. We should be among the top 3 economies of the world. We should be among the top 3 startup ecosystems. We are already in the top 3, but probably better. And I see India actually, with its tremendous focus on education and the youth of the country, the youthfulness of the country, very good days are ahead. We just should ensure that we don't make a mess of it.
All right. So I think we have like final 2-3 minutes. I will invite Ramesh ji to, share his thoughts. And
absolutely brilliant. The key question for the takeaway, is like, what advice would you give for the young budding entrepreneurs or, to be the starters? So what would you suggest?
I think you should, for the young budding startups, you should have a very open, positive mind and look at how and what are the opportunities that are available. Acquaint yourself with the opportunities that are available. Acquaint yourself with the tools and the resources that is being made available in the entire ecosystem, the innovative ecosystem. I think you also should aspire to become entrepreneurial, if not become an entrepreneur. So you should have the entrepreneurial mindset. You should have a problem-solving mindset that will automatically lead you to become entrepreneurial or become an entrepreneur at some point in time. Not necessarily immediately, but it will help you to become an entrepreneur at some point in time. So have an entrepreneurial mindset. Acquire yourself the knowledge of latest trends, technology trends, as well as business trends. and leverage the ecosystem. Don't just have bookish knowledge. Go and network with people, network with companies, network with incubators, network in associations like this, Alumni Association, and see what is happening. And you'll see a lot of help you will get from that system. And I really believe that every one of you should look at, as Abdul Kalam said, we should dream big. If you dream big, you'll achieve great things. If you dream small, you'll be limited by your own dreams. So let's all dream big, and I'm sure you'll succeed.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that was quite fascinating. And I think already, as Professor Dr. Devar has mentioned in the chat, being an entrepreneur is great. Being entrepreneurial is an ethos all can embrace. I think that is actually, the key takeaway, Ramana, you also are mentioning. So it was great to hear from you, and I think and it was fantastic. Everyone is already quite happy, and to hear you, and this I think all the questions are answered as well. So thanks a lot for your time, Ramananji, and I think it was very, very inspirational for mostly the young entrepreneurs. For us, that is what I could say, or at least for me. Yeah.
No, thank you so much. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to share some thoughts. And definitely, in any way that I can help anyone, happy to help them.
Oh, brilliant! That was the last thing.
All right.
You would be available on this alumni network, right, Ramanan?
Yes.
So people wanted some help. They can always reach out to you. Oh, that's of a great use.
Yeah, Ramananji, the distinguished alumni of IIT Bombay, obviously has been already helping for a long time, actually. Yeah. All right.
No, I am accessible and available. I'm more than happy to help anybody in that journey.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Thanks a lot. See you.